Hello and welcome to the first product update webinar for Just Planet in the year 2022. Quick information before we start. This is a GoToWebinar. All attendees are automatically muted to prohibit any kind of background noise. And if you do have a question, please ask them via the in-webinar chat box. As always, my name is Jan Vierguts. I'm the development lead for Just Planet, and today I'm joined by Elmar Karlovic, the COO and co-owner of Netronic Software, the company developing Just Planet. And today we want to talk about what happened in the first month of the year 2022. So we published on February 1st our first sprint release for this year, and we did a couple of things based on feedback that we got from you and a nice enhancement of what we provided until now. The first thing that we are going to talk about is the customization of bar colors. Now, what do we mean by that? We changed how the non-work time looked and felt with the last release of 2021. We changed the calculated matted color that we had before to a stable gray version to reduce color noise and to let you focus on work time. And then we collected and reviewed your feedback and heard from a lot of people they like the gray, but we also heard they preferred the way we had it before. And then we decided to let you decide how you want your bars to look. Now, how do we actually do this in Just Planet? So as you can see here, this is a zoomed in Just Planet account, and I want you to focus on those 4 tasks over here. And you will see that I currently am on the gray that we had since the last major update. The one thing that you may already note is that the text color is a bit different. And that is because, also according to your feedback, we now try to calculate based on the actual colors used a text font and color that is readable both in work and non-work time. And now, if you want to switch back to one of the options we provide, all you need to do is go to the Settings tab and open the Settings dialog. And you will find the option Bar Color in Non-Productive Times over here. Default is gray, as we now established. And when you want to go back to what we had earlier or before the previous major update, you can go to Calculated Color, and let's take a quick look how this then looks. And you will see it's now back to the matted down colors. And you will also notice that the text font and color changed a bit because we now are working on different color sets. But when we decided to give you options, we said, why stop at 2 options when we could have a couple more? And the more that we added also provides some benefit. For example, if we go to transparent, what this allows you is to see if, and if so, which periods or calendar exceptions are affecting your non-work time here. So as we can see here, we can see directly through the bar that those tasks are all affected by different calendar exceptions. And we can then go ahead into the exceptions and investigate which issues or what changes have been made here. The other option that we added, besides a change from gray to white, that is basically all just exchanging the gray in the non-productive times to a white. Let's take a quick look, but as you can see, it's now fully white. The last thing we also did, if you also want to reduce color noise and do not care that much for the difference between productive and non-productive times on your bars, we can also go to a complete bar. So this is all the one color that you have decided in your color scheme for the respective tasks. So this allows you to have a really strong visual look at your tasks if you do not care how much of that bar is actually in productive time or in non-productive time. And we believe with those 5 options that we've now opened up to everyone, We allow you to design those bars just the way you need and want to. Okay, now let's take it back to the PowerPoint and discuss what else we did. The next thing we did is we started with what we have written down here as enhancing performance. This, of course, we are always doing, but we're now focusing on specific areas, and we will also, and we will talk about this a bit more detailed later, do this for the next couple of sprints, because we restructured how we communicate between our clients and the backend calculating engine, and differentiate now to a way harder extent between what needs to have a complete update and what does not. So what are scheduling relevant updates that actually force us to do a whole sweep of changes? If you change a production time or a setup time, then of course this impacts the entire schedule, and we do actually need to update here. Same goes for time constraints, and time constraints in this case means either task time constraints or release due dates or even calendar exceptions or changes to existing resource calendars. Same of course goes for resource updates. If you change which groups a resource belongs to or change its efficiency, we also have hard impacts on the schedule as a whole and need to calculate those. But we also figured that we have a lot of updates that are not actually scheduling relevant. And one of those major things that a lot of you use is the execute mode. And what we noted was the shop floor feedback that your operators give is not actually scheduling relevant until approval. So we can save time here and actually do save or skip the entire calculation process for all operator feedback that we get. And of course, this then extended to, okay, shop floor feedback, fine, but we also have a couple of text fields on jobs, on resources, on groups, on tasks that also don't really impact the schedule. So if you change the name, the customer, whatever, it does not impact the schedule, and we can skip out and only partially update to heavily increase the speed at which we can work on those updates. And now, after having done this opened up, and this entire restructuring opened up a lot of new avenues for us for further improvement. And as I said in the beginning, we will come back to this later. But now I'd like to hand it over to Alma to talk about the main new feature for the first release.
Yep, thank you very much, Jan, and welcome everybody from my side. I will now present the other functionality to you that we also included in our January sprint. And this is automatically calculated release dates. And before I am going to show this to you in my Just Planet account, I would just like guide you through the idea of this functionality first. So I guess you all know the general release date functionality, as we have this release dates actually since the very first version when we started Just Planet. And these release dates in its origin sense normally follow what I call like a technical restriction due to an external event. So what does that mean? So normally you are running a make to order business, and in a lot of cases, you know, you depend on a material delivery from outside, and your company that you cooperate with give you a delivery date for this material. And so this delivery date, you know, coming from outside, from your provider of this material, you know, marks technically the earliest possible start date for your job. And this is how you use the release dates in the past. But exactly this functionality you can also make use of, in a sense, you know, to improve your WIP situation in your schedule. So I guess more than 90, if not 95% of our users prefer, and following our recommendation, prefer the as soon as possible scheduling. And as soon as possible scheduling has one big advantage. It, always grants the maximum of buffer possible by that forward scheduling method. But on the other hand, there is a, let's call it a risk that some of your tasks, especially in the early stages of your routing and succeeding a potential bottleneck, tend to be scheduled too early in a sense that you would like them actually to start a bit later to improve the WIP. And this, exactly for such a situation, this is why auto release dates are made for. You can see them, in the sense of that you, or actually the system automatically sets restriction, to get scheduled starting and end dates of tasks in an earliest wanted sense. Okay? So, and if you activate this auto release date functionality, then with every job that you create in your Just Planet account, the system automatically sets a release date in this earliest wanted start date sense if you do not set a release date manually. Okay, so and this auto calculation follows actually a formula that you can see here. And this is backwards calculation actually from the given due date of your job. Backwards, it is calculated. And what is considered? Considered is the total sum of all cycle times of your entire amount of operations tasks. And there is, a supplement on this. So added is a buffer factor that says X time as a buffer, the amount of total task times. So, and this duration of the buffer factor plus the portion of the cycle times then, leads to the automatically calculated release date. Okay, so that's like in general what we had in mind. So how do you reckon that there is a release date in the Gantt chart views? So in the Gantt chart views, you will see that by orange release dates instead of the ones that you are used, which are colored in gray. And as long as the release dates are orange, they are still activated. So that means if you change something within a job that still refers to an auto release date, e.g. you change the duration of a task. So let's say you increase the production time per unit of a task, or you add a task. So then the automatically calculated release date will be updated and calculated new, and will be updated accordingly. And this happens the entire time until you decide to set the date manually. And in the moment you set that manually, then this automated release dates are not longer activated, and as you are used to it, you're as a planner, you're in the driver's seat of Just Planet. With that, you took over and there is no automatism anymore, and it keeps with the date as set manually. So overall, my recommendation is carefully check, what kind of buffer factor you want to set, and we will have a look into that based on an example in a minute. And second, once you decide to go for the auto release date functionality, see this as a solid starting point of, action to improve WIP. Do not see the automatically calculated release date always as fixed or given. See them as a solid suggestion that you always, can fine tune. Okay, so and with this, let's see this in action. So here now I switch to a Just Planet account. If you just scroll down, you can see I have got here like 50 jobs in there. But let's take a closer look into the structure of these of this order backlog here. And for that, I'm making use of the new functionality, which is the world view. So I activate the world view to get like literally a world view perspective of the structure of my backlog here. And what you easily see using the world view is, that here in the beginning where I have got low sequence numbers means high prioritized jobs, that all looks good. But at a dedicated point of time, you can see this here, there is kind of a branch, that is separated from the rest of the structure. So, and this is exactly the case that I mentioned before. So like obviously here we have got a bottleneck, and by the forward scheduling, those operations that precede the bottleneck are scheduled quite early. So let's have a look into just one example. So I'm hopping in here and let's focus on this job here. So like obviously if I'm having a detailed look in here, I have the laser cutting, and the laser cutting currently is scheduled to start somewhere end of January. And the overall throughput time here is pretty long because like currently the scheduled end date is mid of February. But the most of the time here is actually the pretty long waiting time until the welding can start. And would be better for my whip if I would start the laser cutting later actually. So this was just tighten the whole throughput structure, right? So, and if I'm just checking in the resource-centric view, then I will easily check that obviously my welding currently here is my bottleneck, and this long waiting time here definitely determines my throughput time in a very, very significant way. So let's get an idea about the quality of my schedule in terms of WIP. And therefore, I'm clicking here on the KPI section. And here what I see that in the current status of my account, it gives a number of 1,293 K minutes. So that's my indicator for where I'm coming now. On the other hand, I have got a total buffer amount of roughly 1,000. So what I will now try is, to improve the quality of the schedule in terms of work in progress. And I will use the auto release date functionality for that. So for that, I'm changing to settings and I'm opening the general settings dialog, actually the same dialog Jan showed just a couple of minutes ago. But I don't want to change the colors of the bars. I want to improve the schedule in terms of WIP. And therefore, this is now at the bottom party of that dialog. We have got the auto release date, activated or non-activated. Currently it says no, and then I'm going for yes to activate. Once I activate it here, the second step is now I need to define my buffer factor for calculation. So currently that says 20. And let's start off at the very upper end here. And let's start with 18. So just to see what happens in here. And I'm clicking OK. And now I'm triggering a scheduling run. And now see what happens. You can see here, obviously, these orange symbols have been automatically set. And let's have a look into my KPIs now. So now I have got an overall throughput time figure, which, is the indication for the WIP, which is now on 1,062 in comparison to 1,239. So obviously, even with starting a very high buffer level of 18, I could improve the situation in terms of WIP in comparison to not setting a release date at all. On the other hand side, for this, to improve, I consumed a bit of my buffer. So like it's pretty obvious that we have got kind of a trade-off between total buffer and throughput time. So it is a trade-off between improving WIP and, handling with buffers which equals risk. So like you have to give some of your buffer in terms of you have to increase risk of being late, but therefore you win in terms of having a better work in progress. So let's make the next step. So let's see what happens, if we decrease the buffer factor. So let's go for 12. And here now, following this trade-off logic that I just explained, it's exactly happening, what I explained. So like now we could further decrease the total throughput time to a level of almost 800. But now we consume more total buffer, and now the total buffer is 761. So, and if we just go back to the world view, just to get an overview again. So here you can easily see in my world view that, the structure of this branch now is not existing anymore. And obviously, so that overall schedule got way tighter, still no delays, still some buffer. So in my eyes, pretty obvious that the quality of this schedule overall is better than, without any release dates. So, and if we would just go further ahead and just decrease that to a level of 10, so then my figure of throughput time could be decreased further to 730 almost, and I still have a buffer of 582. So, and this, can be done more and more, and until it turns to, being too restrictive, so that the calculation then will have some delays of jobs with low sequence number. So this is a bit, there is no golden rule that I can give to you what kind of buffer level or buffer factor to set. This is absolutely following a lot of criteria that relate, to first your preference and second your use case. So it's your preference how risky you want to be. So as always, I tend to say, hey, come on, the more familiar you are with the software, the more familiar you are with our just-planet approach, the better your scheduling process is running, the more you can, risk in terms of giving buffer for work in progress enhancement. So in the beginning, start off with not being too risky, but I would recommend that you check out, how to set the automatic release dates for your use case. And always, as I said, do not see this for granted, but, at least you should be aware of that there is functionality also, to overcome some limitations of the as soon as possible sense in terms of WIP. You can also set these constraints all manuals, also all good. So the minimum I want to achieve, or we want to achieve with providing this functionality, that you are aware of that there is, or that there are actually possibilities, that there is functionality, to enhance your WIP situation of your schedule. So that's the minimum we would like to achieve here. And in best case, your use case fully fits into this automatic calculated functionality, then for sure make use of it. The higher the quality of your schedule, the more satisfied even as a just vanity. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then let me switch back to the slides just to continue with the recommendation. So let's repeat. So first of all, carefully check your use case against, the rules of calculating this auto release dates, and then adjust the buffer factor accordingly. Second, see that as a solid starting point in terms of actions to improve your WIP, but never see that for granted as indisputable dates. Okay, so that's all about the auto release dates. Let's look into the future. So what's next? So we have started our development sprint already, and we plan to publish the outcome of this release on March 7th this year, of course. And what's in our focus? Actually, with this sprint, and most likely also with the upcoming sprint, our focus is enhancing the performance of Just Planet. And Jan has explained the path, that we are following currently and that we actually opened with our last release, and we want to follow that path. We want to enhance the performance. And to explain it in my words, the idea behind is that we actually classify or categorize, the interactions that you guys do as the users. And based on this category, in the easiest way, is your interaction, relevant for scheduling or not? Relevant for scheduling means, is your interaction triggering a scheduling run or not? And based on this separation or categorization, we decide whether we go with path A or B, and all those interactions that do not trigger a scheduling run, here we need to definitely get better in our performance, and we are very, very confident that we can do so. Further, we want to improve the stability, so that's kind of an automatic outcome when intensely working on the performance. So that's what we are heading for with the current sprint, and most likely also with the sprint afterwards, because here we see definitely now a good way of improving also the benefit for you guys of using the software. And hopefully this can be done to your full satisfaction. And with this, I would like to end the presentation here. And I thank you for attending. Thank you for watching. So now I am having a quick look into the question. Actually, so far, I cannot see any question in here. If you might have one afterwards, or maybe a few guys will watch the recording of that webinar and have questions afterwards, just do not hesitate to just write an email to either Jan or myself, or just use the in-app chat box of Just Planet. Just reach out. As you could see in the beginning, we are listening to what you guys are saying, and every feedback that you give to us, is discussed internally, and everything we do actually is always more or less 100% based on feedback of users. So actually it's yours. You as the users have it in your own hands. So please do not hesitate to give feedback. Okay, so then thank you very much again for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.